In 1999, Morpheus offered Neo a choice between a red pill and a blue pill. In 2018, this country fractured between red and blue. In 2022, I'm here to tell you that if you really want the truth, more voters are neither red or blue. Yet, they have no representation, no choice, and no options. They have to choose between candidates chosen by the red people or the blue people. I'm David Esrati, and I'm running for Congress as an American, as in red, white, and blue. I'm a veteran, an activist, and a small businessman. I'm asking you to join me in reminding the professional politicians in Congress who their bosses are. I support ranked choice voting, campaign finance reform, and a verified voter information system, all so we can stop having the best politicians money can buy. It's time to elect a veteran who will work for you, no matter what color they want to label you. Please go to electesrati.com and learn more. I'm David Esrati, and I approve this message. In Jurassic Park, you thought those little baby dinosaurs were cute until they turned into out-of-control carnivores. That's sort of what happens to government when we elect people based on very expensive advertising campaigns and propaganda. I'm David Esrati. I'm a veteran and a small businessman running for Congress. You don't want professional ad people and pollsters to sway your vote. All those hot-button issues like gun control, abortion, borders are all politicized to stop you from voting rationally. And thinking rationally seems to be in short supply these days. Most Americans have been voting against their own best self-interest for a long time because we've allowed money to buy our leaders. 1 million Americans died in the last 2 years because our leaders couldn't lead. It wasn't that hard. Mask, distance, test, and then vaccinate. In an instant, we had billions to spend on healthcare for COVID, when for years we've been told we can't provide healthcare for everyone equally in this country. That's an unintended consequence of the pandemic. If you think about it, our government can pretty much do whatever it wants, or what the people who buy our politicians tell our leaders to do. We also had a ton of money to prop up businesses. The next thing you know, it turns out that a living wage was not only possible, but necessary. As a small businessman who won't sell you out to corporate interests and lobbyists, I can tell you that it's time to fully understand the consequences of companies like Amazon, Facebook, and Google and their effect on small business, and to remind you that small business is the #1 creator of jobs in this country. So this next election, don't trust this ad or any other political ad. Do your homework and think before you vote. It's time to put this ad man in Congress because I know that the best advertising is based on the truth, not the size of the budget or payola. Or you can just vote based on who has the money to buy their way into Congress and live with the consequences. I'm David Esrati, and I approve this message. I'm David Esrati. I'm running for Congress. Not something I recommend everybody do just because it's not easy, fun, and you put yourself out in front of a whole bunch of people and people say almost anything to you. I thought it was interesting that out of the questions that I got from the kids yesterday, the list, this whole ninja mask thing kept coming up, and why do you think you're a ninja? And there's a mystique about that whole thing, and it's all, a lot of this stuff is confused. But I was very conscious of the symbolism of wearing a black balaclava. I did it for effect. I did it to be seen without being heard. I tried taking signs up and holding them in front of me, because I knew where the cameras were and I knew I was on camera. And no, you can't do that. I'm not about to sit there and dress up in a bozo outfit, no matter what Mike Turner would like, although I think I did go with a bozo nose the following week afterwards. It's a long time ago. This was 1995? 96. So the reality is, I called the chief of police the night before and warned him that I would have that black mask on, that black balaclava, the ninja hood, the looked like a terrorist. And why? Because I wanted him to know, and I wanted his officers to know, that they were safe, that this was happening, going to happen. And he said, I don't care what you wear, until I wore it. But the reason terrorism, terrorists, black mass, all of this have an effect is because it's what we call asymmetrical warfare. And this is nothing new. Sun Tzu was talking about it, 3,000 years ago. And I'm going to read a few things here, okay? Just because I want to get it right. But asymmetrical warfare, the first thing. Unconventional strategies and tactics adopted by a force when the military capabilities of belligerent powers are not simply unequal, but are also significantly different, that they cannot make the same sort of attacks on each other. This is one of the differences between Mike Turner, me, other candidates that have faced Mike Turner. Other candidates want to go against Mike Turner head to head, dollar for dollar, and they lose every time because he has the power of incumbency, and they don't know how to attack his weaknesses. I never expected to go head-to-head, dollar for dollar, but I did expect some support. But unfortunately, the Democratic Party is not run by adults, and neither is the GOP, and support never came. For a lot less money, I could have waged a battle against Mike Turner that would have been epic in proportion. But Mike is a big supporter of our military. He tells us this all the time. He works for the base. He believes in having strong, defense systems. And the reality is we have a military that is so big and so vast and so scary and so deadly that nobody's crazy enough to go to battle with us directly. They just won't do it. That's a good thing. That's called a deterrent. And that was the modus operandi of all the countries after World War II, when we were the biggest, baddest mofos around, that we dropped not one, but 2 nuclear bombs on Japan. And those nuclear bombs were tiny compared to what the nuclear bombs are now. And so we came to think that mutually assured destruction was a good plan. And then we went on to lose every war since. Effectively lose. Because war has changed. Once you have the ability to wipe entire cities off the planet, war is no longer about winning and losing. It's about losing your mind and having a delusion of grandeur that you can actually start a war and win it. And what's happened since then has become, really interesting, because now we win wars, hearts and minds, through social media, through what happens on the internet. It's public opinion. It's the way people perceive things. They feel, are we winning or losing? Putin is an idiot going into Ukraine. His forces weren't prepared. They were never what we were told they were. They're not near as threatening, dangerous, well-trained, because their army is made up of basically conscripts who are too poor and too stupid to have use in other matters. So the Soviets have been sending really weak forces into Ukraine, and they've been getting their ass kicked. Now, there's always the old story about, you know, when you've got a rabbit and a fox, who's going to win? Well, the fox is running for his dinner. The rabbit is running for his life. The rabbit is going to win. Same thing in Ukraine. Ukrainians are fighting for their country. The Russians, they don't know what they're fighting for. Turns out they weren't Nazis over in Ukraine, and there haven't been any Nazis to speak of the type that they expected or the way that Putin painted them. And so the whole thing is falling apart, and it's going to continue to fall apart. But I'm going to go to the definition of terrorism: the calculated use of violence to create a general climate of fear in a population, and thereby to bring about a particular political objective. By that definition, Mike Turner is a terrorist. He keeps warning us of all these threats to our country, to our national security, that he sees, that he believes are, horrible threats, and that we have to have the F-35 and the F-22, and we have to have hypersonic cruise missiles, and missile defense systems, and all these other things, when the next war will be an asymmetrical one once again. And it's not going to be a conventional head-to-head air battle. It's not going to be using aircraft carriers and all of those things. Tanks, planes. Those days are long gone. But he stokes that fear amongst us that we have to keep spending on things, when in fact the real terrorists in this country are some of our own politicians. They're the people who were willing to storm the Capitol, trying to say our elections weren't fair or correct. The terrorists are telling us that, they're going to teach your kids critical race theory and forever screw them up, and oh my God, we can't have that. Or there are hordes of people coming across the border and they're rapists and drug dealers, when in fact none of that is true. Those are terrorists, people. People using fear to get a reaction out of you. So, I'm going to quote once again: asymmetrical warfare. Unconventional strategies and tactics adopted by a force when the military capabilities of belligerent powers are not simply unequal but are so significantly different that they cannot make the same sort of attacks on each other. Basically, let's talk about the shoe bomber. One guy on a plane with a little bit of C4 hidden in his shoe, and now we have to take our shoes off when we go through airport security. I wear steel-toed Doc Martens. I have to take them off all the time, or wear different shoes when I go to courts or federal building. Somehow I might be smuggling in a shank. I might be smuggling in a bomb. We have these metal detectors everywhere. We are living in fear. We have spent $1 gazillion protecting from a guy who never pulled an act of terrorism off. But we're safer. We created the entire Homeland Security thing to make us safer. Yet, I'll tell you what safety is. And this came yesterday in the questions from the kids. How do you plan to stop child abuse? Child abuse. And the answer, this is national security. This is something that we need to address. Not having fear that you're not going to have a place to live. Not having fear of where your next meal is coming from. Not having fear that you're going to be sexually molested or assaulted or treated poorly because you're poor and our system is unequal. Those are the things that we should be worrying about if we're talking about national security. The mental health well-being, the feel of control, the lack of fear of things happening that shouldn't happen, of being stabbed, being shot, being evicted, having an empty pantry. That's national security. And yet, now everybody has a platform, just like I have a platform right here on the internet where I can talk to people all across the planet and say all kinds of things. Does that make them right? Does that make them true? Does that make them good? Bad? Who's to judge? What about freedom of speech? We have all these questions. But we don't have a sense of true security. So what is the answer to the hordes coming over the border? Well, it's fix our immigration system, one. And two, realize that this country, the world's greatest economy, should be able to absorb workers easily. My God, we just had Hurricane Ian sweep through Florida and decimate miles and miles of houses. There's lots of rebuilding stuff to do. There are places for people to work. There is an economy that should be working and working for all of us. But Mike Turner isn't connected to that. He doesn't come to the school. He was supposed to be on Channel 2 today, and he backed out on them. So tomorrow I'll be on Channel 2, and I'll talk about it. But the reality is, safety, national security, feeling comfortable requires us to move away from the acts of terrorism, of striking fear into people about negative outcomes. Now, I showed you that Eric Swalwell ad, Lock Her Up. What happens if having an abortion becomes illegal? Do we start locking people up? That is fear. It's fear-mongering. Fear is a powerful tool. There are 7 triggers, according to my friend Sally, of fascination, of things that people use to motivate them to think about things. I'm going to read the list to you because I can't always remember it. But power, trust, mystique, prestige, vice, alarm, and lust. Those are tools that you get to get people to pay attention. Mike works on power. He works on fear. He works on those a lot. He works on the prestige of being a congressman. He talks about his power that comes from being on the House Intelligence Committee, and that how we need that voice and how he brings jobs to the base. But he doesn't have solutions for questions like, how do you stop child abuse? So, in an age of asymmetrical warfare, we started the Space Force. How many other countries are in space? Name them. Let's see. Russia and Japan. And for a long time we were working with, Russia and China. And for a long time we were working with Russia to actually get stuff to our space station. Now we're working with Elon Musk instead. Go figure. But the reality is, the next war is going to be one based on data security. It's going to be a cyber war. Shutting down our banking system, shutting down our access to the press, shutting down our GPS so we can't get from here to there. How many of our systems are interconnected and require technology now? I mean, you can have a refrigerator that has an internet connection. We should have started a cyber force. We didn't. There are universal truths about terrorism. And that is that it works by making you do things that you wouldn't normally do for fear of something repeating again. Think about that. How much have we spent on homeland security, on putting bomb-sniffing things in airports, when it wasn't bombs that hit the World Trade Center? How much effort have we put in to solving the last war's problems? The next war is going to be the one that happens every single time when the gap between the haves and the have-nots gets too big. And it's something we're not doing anything about, because the haves are buying our politicians. They're telling them they have to win at all costs, and they're distracting us with things like abortion and gun control and the hordes over the border and even inflation, which in truth, inflation is a global problem right now. It's not just the US. Now again, our economy influences a lot of other economies, but we're forgetting about the pandemic, the supply chain things, and the war in Ukraine, because Ukraine was an economic powerhouse, and we're not doing enough to stop that war. Mike wants to send weapons. I'm just ready to tell Putin to get the hell out and we're done with you. Stop embarrassing yourself. Pull your people out, or we're just going to start shooting everything down, anything Russian. And he's going to say, well, I'm going to use nuclear weapons. And we're going to say, no, you're not. And the whole world will stand with us. And Vlad will have to back down. Or we just take him out. That's simple. It can be done. Trust me, we have the technology. Victory in war does not always go to the militarily superior force. Isn't that what happened in our Revolutionary War? I mean, we started out as an asymmetrical war. But the key is having a measured response. Sun Tzu, here's 3 quotes for you. All warfare is based on deception. If your enemy is in superior strength, evade him, or pretend to be weak that he may grow arrogant. Somewhere along the line, we've gotten very confused about what our national mission is. National security isn't about a stronger military. It's about a stronger country that can withstand the forces that wish to tear us down. Unfortunately, those forces now are within our country, working to tear us apart, working to divide us and conquer us, working with ideas like rigged elections, that Joe Biden is weak, talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, when in fact we've got an entire Congress that is bought, sold, and paid for by special interests. They've made way too much money. They're trading stocks. They are screwing the public. And we're spending way too much money on elections. The way you funk the system, as we said in our spot, is by voting for people who are not favored by the insanely rich. Go look at the site Elections Not Auctions. Go look at Elect Esrati and look at Turner's billionaire donors and make a decision on who you want to back. I don't see any questions, by the way, from our Facebook viewers or our YouTube viewers. And I'd be happy to answer them. I thoroughly enjoy answering questions and talking to you. And the concept of this whole thing is, once I get in Congress, to do this every day at the end of the day, tell you what happened in Congress, how I voted, what's happening the next day, get your input, and stay in touch with my constituents. So, one last thing. The primary difference between Mike Turner and I, Mike still believes that strength always wins. He believes in Goliath. Well, my name is David, and I have a slingshot. And we will remind you that this Saturday from 9:30 to 1:30, I will be making you the most amazing pancakes ever at my house, 113 Bonner Street, Dayton, Ohio, 45410. Come one, come all. Make a donation, buy a t-shirt, have an incredible breakfast. Remember, it's scratch buttermilk pancakes with my secret recipe, orange juice, coffee, sweet cream butter, pure maple syrup, and no pork. Because if you want pork, you've got to go over there to Mike Turner's campaign. He's the king of pork. Thanks for watching, Tam. Thank you to the rest of you who've watched and who haven't commented. I do my best to make this interesting every day. Bill Mavar sent a question for tomorrow. I'm going to probably try to get to that, but we'll see what happens. And tomorrow at 5:25 or so, I shall be on WDTN talking for about 3 whole minutes. So we'll see if I get a chance to say anything that's going to get people to vote for me. If you want to know more about my campaign, go to electesrati.com. If you want to know about the pancake breakfast, go to the events tab. There's a link there. If you want to buy a t-shirt that says defund politicians or do something or elections not auctions, those are all available on the site. And remember, every donor gets entered into a drawing for a signed Shepard Fairey print. So I don't care if it's $5 or $2,900. Still can use the money, still want to buy some advertising and get this out, and still got a lot of other things to do. So help out, and we'll see you soon, like tomorrow at 4. Thank you. Have a great day.